Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year to you and your families. I hope you're all doing great. In today's video, I am so excited because I want to share with you that React Router 7 is out, and I'll tell you why I'm so excited about it. And then I'm going to show you a simple example of how you could integrate React Router 7 with Strapi. So I was a big fan and still am of Remix. Next.js is awesome, but sometimes you got to show some love to other frameworks. Remix was doing a lot of things well. And the coolest announcement from the Remix team is that instead of having Remix 3, they're just going to release React Router 7 that you could use either as a library or a framework. So you get all the awesome features that Remix was known for, but you get it with React and React Router 7 right out of the box. So let's take a look how we could get started. If you want to follow along with the written portion of this video, you can go to strapi.io integrations and look for React Router 7, and you could take a look at the blog post. But I'm going to do an overview video of how to cover the steps, but we'll follow the same steps outlined here. And what's cool about React Router, if you take a look at the docs, once again, you can use it as a library or the framework if you want to get some server-side benefits from Remix and now React Router 7. I am so excited and so happy. Definitely check out their documentation, but let's get started. So here I am in my terminal, and I'm going to go ahead and start by creating a new folder for my Strapi and my React Router 7 application. So I'm going to make a directory RR7. Why not? I'm going to cd into that directory, and then we could get started. Let me clear my screen here. We're going to start with the simplest step, which is getting started with our Strapi instance. We're going to use the command npx create Strapi app at latest, and we're going to call our app server. You could also read more about it in our documentation, but I'm going to walk you through the steps. As this process continues, you're going to be asked if you want to log in or sign up for Strapi Cloud. You could skip this step for now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Do you want to use the default database? We're going to say yes. Start with example structure. Yes, because that's what we're going to use in our demo. Of course, we're going to go with TypeScript. Install dependencies with npm yes, and then initialize repository. You can do so, but I'm going to skip this step for now because I already created this project before, and I'll make sure to link to the repo as well as the integration steps on our blog site so you could have all the code snippets that we're going to use. Once everything is all set, we'll be able to cd into our server folder, and we could run yarn develop to start our Strapi project. That's going to open up our project on localhost 1337. We could go ahead and create our first admin user, paul.bratzlavsky@strapi.io, and most secure password is always monkey123. Don't you ever forget it. And let's click start. And we're going to be greeted with our admin panel. And what's awesome, if you followed and selected the flag to create our app with test data, when you navigate to the content manager, you're going to see that we have a couple of different collections available from article, author, category, and user. We're going to select article, and you could see here that our posts are published. And if not, you could go ahead and click the publish button. And then when we go to settings, you can go and take a look under users permission, under roles, under public, under articles, making sure that find and find one are pre-selected. In our case, we're going to use this find endpoint, and we're going to be able to make a get request to API articles to get our data. Make sure that you save the changes, and now our application is set up because we're already able to get access to these articles by going to HTTP localhost 1337 and take a look at the articles endpoint here. And we're going to see that we are getting our articles, and we'll talk about how to populate the rest of the data in just a moment. By default, it only returns the top level fields to prevent underfetching and overfetching. So if we want to get additional data, like we see here in our article, we have our cover image, our different blocks that represent our rich text, our quote, our media, we do have to tell Strapi specifically that this is the data that we want. Now that Strapi is set up, we could move on to setting up React Router 7, or as I call it, Remix version 3. If you've never tried Remix, just start with React Router 7. It is amazing. There's different ways that you can get started. We are going to go using the framework route. So go ahead, click framework, and we're going to copy this command, npx create React Router app at latest. And in my terminal, I'm going to stop my Strapi server. I'm going to change directories into our root project folder, and I'm going to paste in npx create React Router at latest, and I'm going to call this client and click enter. Yes, we want to proceed, and this is going to set up our project for us. Do we want to initialize new repository? I'm going to say no for now. Install dependencies, yes. And once everything is installed, we're ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and open both of the projects in VS Code just to make it easier. Pick a more festive color. I don't know why I love neon. And here, I'm just going to open up my terminal, and I'm going to open another one. In the first one, we're going to cd into our server and start Strapi by running yarn develop and click enter. In our second window, we're going to cd client, and we're going to start yarn dev to start the React Router 7 project. Let's navigate to localhost 5173. And boom, we got our React Router working. Now there's a couple of different routing conventions in React Router. I really enjoy the file folder convention. So if you navigate to routing here, they show you a couple of cool examples how to set it up, but we're going to go and use file system-based routing, something that everybody's used to from Next.js. So we're going to go ahead and click on this to see all the details, but we're going to start by installing the React Router file conventions routes package. So for now, I'm going to stop my client server, paste in the code, and install the package. Once it's done, I could run yarn dev. So our application is running, and let's navigate to our client folder here. And I'm going to go ahead, move my face out of the way for now. Take a look at our folder structure. So we have our React Router 7 app running, and we have the app folder. And we're going to start by setting up our routes. And currently we only have our home page here at home.tsx. We're going to modify this a little bit to use the new convention. Taking a look at our accompanying notes, and I'll have the link in the description, you're going to see that we need to update our apt/routes.tsx file to work with the new routing convention. I'm going to go ahead, copy this snippet, and we're going to navigate to our apps folder, to our routes.ts file. Whoa, and the text is too big. And we're going to replace it with our updated changes. Also here in our routes folder, the home.tsx file, we're going to rename it, and we're going to make it index.tsx. This is going to be our root route. And now navigate to the index.tsx file. We're going to update this from pointing to home to point to our index page that we just renamed. To me, this is how I like it. It just makes a little bit more sense. This is our home root page. But now when we navigate to our project, we notice that everything works, which is kind of awesome. And now if I wanted to add another page in my routes folders, for instance, I want to make an about page, I'm going to make a new file. I'm going to call it about.tsx, and I'm going to paste in this code snippet that I have here. This is for our about page. And now in my front end, if I navigate to /about, you're going to see that we have our about page. And this is how easily you could add new pages in React Router 7. So now that we have our basics project set up, let's take a look how we could load our data from Strapi. To help us with this, so you don't have to watch me type, you will find the example in the blog post that I have linked in the description. We're going to copy the snippet for the index.tsx page here. And in my code editor, navigate to our index.tsx file, and we're going to replace everything here. Let's scroll back to the top. We do need to install our QS library to allow us to stringify our query object notation that we're going to use below. So I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to stop the client, clear. So now let's go ahead and do yarn add QS. And while we're here, let's also add the types for QS. Once everything's installed, we could run yarn dev. And before we continue, we could quickly take a look at this code. We're yet to add our article card, but here we are showing the structure of our article data that we expect to get. And the cool part right now, I'm defining it this way, inline, because I know this is the data I'm getting from my response, but we are working on Strapi SDK, which will allow you to just use the types from Strapi in a much more easier way. Here, I'm defining my types for my article response and my loader data. What you're able to do, you are able to create a function called loader that's going to run on the server, and we're able to add all of our fetching logic here. So what I'm doing here, I'm defining my endpoint that we are getting from Strapi. I'm passing my query params to make sure that we populate our image, and I'm just making a basic fetch request. When I get the data, if no data is found, we just say no found. You could throw not found here if you want. And then we go ahead and we iterate through our data and display our card. But the magic here happens inside this loader. Before we could see this in action, we do need to make the final component, which is our article card. So in our project, we're gonna go ahead in our app folder, create a new folder called components. And here we're going to create a new file called articlecard.tsx. And going through our code snippet, we're going to find our code for the article card. So go ahead and copy it, paste it in. Nice. And this relies on Strapi image. So let's create a new file for a component called Strapi image. And this just makes it much easier to work with Strapi images, because sometimes they're hosted in your file system. Sometimes they're hosted like Cloudinary. So this little function and component that I have here allows you to easily manage that, because it does a little check to see where the URL is coming from and if it should append the Strapi URL. With this being here, let's go ahead and copy it and paste it in. Nice. So now let's go back to our article card. Make sure we fix this import, because for some reason, VS Code did not want to do it by itself. And now let's go to our index.tsx file. Again, let's fix this import, because VS Code cannot figure out by itself. And now that we have all this in place, we are using our loader to get our data from Strapi. So now when we navigate to our application and go back to our home page, boom, you now see our data being loaded from our Strapi application. And what's awesome, I could easily add another blog post by going to articles, create a new entry, call it "You Are All Awesome," say because it is true, and then we generate our slug, which is based on our title. And then let's add a cover image. I'm going to add, this image of this coffee mug, because I feel like I should get some coffee. Click finish and publish. And now when we navigate back to our application and refresh, boom, there's our new article and blog post. So I just wanted to make a little complimentary video to share with you, to show you how easily you could get started with React Router 7 and Strapi. If you have any questions, you can always join us on our Discord's open office hours every Monday through Friday, 12:30 p.m. CST time to about 1:30 p.m. CST time. Because we just got off the holidays, so we paused the open office hour. So if you're watching this before January 6th, 2025, we didn't start it back up yet, but we are starting after January 6th when everybody's back in the office. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And once again, Happy New Year to all of you and your families.